as our next panel is going to discuss, the ad support thing in Netflix is particularly interesting because what has eluded them at this point has been scale, right? So they went to market last year with, hey, we're Netflix, you got to buy us. And the ad community kind of took the call, but they didn't necessarily take with the checks to follow theirs because they didn't have a whole lot, right? Because they were starting from scratch and zero. And obviously a very aggressive play, I'm sure you're going to get into this now, to essentially keep the price of the ad avoidant tier relatively stable, maybe a little bit higher price, and then dropping really the price of the ad support. That's actually a conundrum, right, was ad support, right? If ad support is going to be a thing in streaming at some level of scale, it's going to need scale. And if enough people are actually watching in non-advertising environments, that actually has a bit of a stretch, right, when it comes to the advertising community trying to say, okay, this is worth a buy for me. So anyway, I don't mean to steal your thunder, but Hugh Scallon is chief video guy at, I don't know what the title is these days, at VaynerMedia. He was kind enough to take the arm twist to moderate this panel. And I will tell you, we've had a change too. So you've already heard from our latest edition, Alan Wolk, who will be moderating the panel about local television and streaming afterwards, is joining as a panelist. And I reminded him that he's a panelist on this one, not a moderator. But Alan obviously is well known and well regarded and by most accounts, if not all accounts, was the guy who coined FAST in the first place.
Yes, that is true.
Put your mic on. Got to turn it on. There you go.
It was in December 2018. It was not on purpose. We were just trying to figure out a way to distinguish between Hulu, which had ads but also cost money, and Pluto, which had ads but was free. Wrote out free ads, but that's fast. And then it just kind of took off, and I never patented or anything. But I do have a Wikipedia entry, so.
There you go. Well, you will hear the angst in Alan's voice then for sure for the rest of the afternoon. But anyway, I bow humbly in your general directions, plural. Thank you for having this conversation. And again, ad-supported television, I mean, it comes in many flavors. It's evolving, and hopefully we'll learn more about it with Hugh and friends. Thank you.
Tim, thank you. Okay, all right. How's everybody doing? An hour after lunch, everybody still awake, ready to go? And all right. So what a great segue after John's presentation. Ad-supported CTV, SVOD, AVOD, FAST, oh my, right? And we're going to go later into local. So my name is Hugh Scallon. I like Tim's title, but I head up video activation at VaynerMedia. What a great brief for me to build a convergent TV operation on top of a social media agency with a famous founder, Gary Vaynerchuk. So we're having a lot of fun with this. And I was really honored to be brought up on the panel, especially at a conference like this. I started out my career as a local buyer in Chicago at Starcom, so worked with Becky Meyer at one point. So I thought this was awesome to kind of come back into the fold post-pandemic. But without further ado, I wanted to have everybody just introduce themselves real quickly, and we'll jump right into it. Go to Alan.
Okay, so I came up with this term. It's called FAST. No, I am the co-founder and lead analyst at TV Rev. We are, as the name implies, an analyst firm. We do a bunch of special reports, and we have a newsletter that comes out 4 times a week. It hits about 55,000 people at both sort of fairly evenly split between advertising, at some level advertising, ad tech, and distribution, people who work at the various programmers and publishers. And we have been covering that intersection of streaming television and advertising for many years.
I feel like I'm going to get schooled by John on this panel. To have a journalist, specialist that invented FAST. So good. Hi, everyone. Emily Bromley. I work at Freewheel. I run our growth team. That's essentially new business, new markets, new products. I have been at Freewheel for 9 years, mostly covering our existing business side. So Freewheel's in a very fortunate position. Most of our clients are 90% of the premium, let's call it cable and publisher supply. I know when people hear the word Freewheel, it can mean a lot of different things. We have different platforms. I'm really here representing what we call our core TV platform product that's ad serving with native SSP technology layered with data capabilities. So excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Jen Donahue, and I'm here representing Disney Ad Sales, where I lead local and political advertising across our ABC-owned television stations, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, and Hulu, where we define everything as geo-targeted on a national level.
So I was really excited about this panel. We have industry leadership, we have an agency person, we have a publisher, broadcaster, and we have ad tech and platforms. And we talk a lot about at VaynerMedia, modern video for modern living rooms. So this is a little bit of a slide that we would show to clients in a QBR to go over the modern video landscape. And because of the great role that John played earlier, I've got a couple of slides in here which we may go to if we hit a hot point. I think what we're going to do instead, and call an audible, is just go right into it. And we kind of cooked up 4 or 5 different talking points and a talk track to get into this and really dive into, I mean, look, at Advertising Week New York, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Yeah. There were 50-odd panels about this very subject. So we could do this all day. Maybe we'll go into the eating room later and keep going. But what we'd like to dive into right away is building on something that John had in his deck. And my clickbait title for this question is Streaming Boom or Bust. And what I mean by that is, tremendous explosion of connected TV, but at the same time, the press has talked a lot about the price increases and maybe, the streaming wars are over, what have you. So we had a 2-part question to start with, and I want to start out and throw this to Alan to attack. A 2-part question. Do you think that the increase in pricing in some of the SVOD solutions could lead to an increase in AVOD and FAST, which John was sort of intimating? And then secondarily, talk to us about your thoughts on the proliferation of new premium AVOD solutions that have advertising as access for consumers and now access for branded solutions.
Yeah, sure. So, and this sort of actually plays off of the last thing that Tim and John were talking about. So we think that the price of all the SVOD services is going to shoot way up. They are severely underpriced right now. That's like the classic Silicon Valley trick where, that it's called boil the frog, where you kind of start off real low and you sort of bump it up, $2, $3 every few months, and suddenly your bill is doubled, you don't realize it. So we think that, and the reason for this is that there's a lot more in there. In other words, like, you can sort of see Max has started it, Disney is sort of coming on, where they're really going to be almost like mini MVPDs, right? So if you look at where Max is at now, you've got the entertainment programming from HBO and all the Discovery and Scripps, HGTV stuff. They launched CNN Max already, so they have a 24-hour news station there. And if you are watching the news right now, pro tip, it's mostly ad-free still, so you don't get the 8 minutes of pharma ads that you do on regular CNN. And then they have sports. They did something with Bleacher Reports. I mean, Disney has ESPN, Disney Plus and Hulu. Bob Iger said they're going to launch a single app off of it. So again, they have ABC News. David Muir beats any of the cable networks by I think it's 5 or 6 X in viewership. So that's where they're heading, and what they're going to do, I think, to ramble, is raise the price of the ad-free way above the ad-supported to drive people to ad-supported. It just makes sense, because right now, if there's a show I like, and it's it's $3 more to watch the ad-free, why wouldn't I? And maybe I'll churn out of it at some point, but I think they're really, ad-free is going to have to be a much more expensive experience for people, and that will drive the growth of ad-supported.
I think, just to kind of add on to that, there's a new term. Now I can write a Wikipedia. I feel like HVOD is a thing, hybrid video on demand, where you are paying for a subscription and you have an ad experience. That was the biggest topic at Cannes, or the biggest question from the FreeWorld client base of what is that right balance of ad load to maintain that premium viewer experience and still capture a sub fee. I mean, we all see what's happening in Hollywood. That has a direct correlation to the economics of streaming. It's not sustainable. So I think layer on with the macroeconomic environment of you have consumer sensitivity to subscription services that's driving adoption of FAST and ad-supported models that are cheaper in market, and then layer on also with linear shifting to digital. So we're looking at an avalanche of opportunity that comes with huge buy-side upside as well, to kind of answer the second part of your question, Hugh, of, I think what digital offers that linear doesn't is measurement, flexibility, and controls. Linear is a closed ecosystem where the publisher manages the campaigns, soup to nuts. So it's a very different opportunity that comes with very different economics.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit more to, I guess, the ad sales part of it, since that was really well covered by our other panelists here. But, after the many years of learnings with Hulu in the ad-supported environment, now bringing that feedback from clients and from viewers to Disney Plus and ESPN Plus has been really important to make sure it's all about the viewer experience. To the point that was just made, what is it like with the ad? How many ads are they being served? Are they interested in unique ad products like a binge ad or a pause ad? And how does that relate to their living room experience or however they're consuming that great content? When we think about ad supported, there's 5 streamers, right, making up 70% of the viewing right now, and Disney has 3 of them. And so we're staying very close to what that experience is like and always modifying to make sure that we're staying with that at our core.
Well, that's a good bill, because we're going to get into a little bit of what's underneath that in our state of play in FAST. And this is just some eye candy as a background to back up what Jennifer said. Nielsen Gauge as a proxy, with all due respect to ComScore in the room, just as a backdrop. But I want to talk a little bit about FAST. My clickbait for this question is FAST for real? And one just sort of subtext from the agency, a way that I started using streaming as an icebreaker is in every client meeting or every chat group in Zoom, I would say, to introduce ourselves, I want to know what you're streaming. And we have found that this is the new commonality that we all have, is you could all tell me what you're streaming right now. So much so that all the teams in the agency, even the social media, have begun asking this to open up every meeting. Well, when you get into what you're streaming, what I find is that people don't always talk about FAST. I might be the only one to say, like, did you know when you go to Pluto, they have 21 movie channels, and all that you could watch The Godfather over and over. And so I wanted to turn this one a little bit to Emily, because sitting atop an SSP, you're seeing the supply coming at you, right? So you see a lot of FAST supply. And so I wanted to get a sense of what are some of the factors, is FAST for real? What's driving this ad supply coming into your pipes? And how do you frame that up for the enterprise clients that you work with?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, it's free. Again, given the macroeconomic uncertainty, I think that certainly helped drive fast adoption. I think it is a true lean back experience. If you look at the optionality that consumers have, we're almost in the golden era of content. You can get whatever you want over IP. That's why consumers are leaving your cable bundle, going to your CTV to download all of these premium apps, but that comes with confusion. You can't always find what you want to watch. It's so easy if you turn on your Pluto FAST channel to just lean back and relax and have your local news on, or have 24/7 cops, or what have you. And I would say the third, what's driving adoption, is that these FAST channels have been acquired by major programmers. And
Tubi and Fox.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes with huge opportunity from a programming perspective, because those programmers own the content and they can place it wherever they so choose. And so the actual content in and of itself, again, going back to one of the key components, I think areas of growth and opportunity is upping the quality of content on those platforms or on those channels.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Alan, you coined the word FAST. 5 years later, what's next for FAST?
So there's a bunch of stuff. So one of the biggest things that's happening in FAST right now is something that we're calling a push to quality, right? So giving away tomorrow's Week in Review column, part one of the two things. Vizio just announced that they had taken on content. They basically doubled the amount of content they've had since last year. But what's happening is they're not taking, like when all these services started up, nobody thought FAST was real, and they would just take whatever they could get their hands on. A lot of it was like, not super that great. But the deal that they just announced is like they're getting the Star Trek movies from Paramount. They're getting, BBC baking show and some Doctor Who stuff from BBC. They're getting like really fairly, the sort of stuff that used to go to syndication. And as a result, they're also shedding a lot of the stuff that they picked up in the early days that's sort of a little bit, niche is being kind, but sort of subpar and not that much interest. And so they're curating a lot of stuff too. Like there's this weird myth that FAST is just these linear channels, but it's not. Like there's FAST, we call them FAST channels, but the services, the Plutos, the Samsung TV Pluses are a mix of on-demand and streaming. They're renegotiating their deals now so that they have rights to both. And they sell them the same. It's not like I go and I buy, I want to buy, the linear channels on Pluto. You buy Pluto, you get the audience across the board there. So that's another huge thing that's going on. They're sort of, they're putting that up. But there's definitely, and again, it's very similar. We did a report earlier this year, which is called Faster Than New Cable. And a lot of it is, there's a lot of parallels to the way cable, for those of us who are as old as me, who were around back in the day, initially it was like there was a bunch of crap on it, and then people were like, why would someone watch this? And then it started growing, then like
500
it got
channels.
real. What?
500 channels.
Yeah, exactly. And then it got real. But that's sort of what's going on. And I forgot the curation too. They're all curating their own channels, which makes life difficult for ad buyers, because like with cable, you could buy sci-fi. If you wanted to reach science fiction fans, you bought Sci-Fi Network. It was everywhere. Now everybody's got their own sort of flavor of science fiction and fantasy and whatnot. It's kind of hard to go, okay, apples to apples.
Did the audience know there's over 1,600 FAST channels across all the streamers and across all the TVOS infrastructure? I think Vivo has about 1,000 of them. I'm just kidding. But a fascinating space. I want to pivot a little bit, and I'll give you a little bit more eye candy here. Jennifer brought up earlier, I want to throw this one to her, the role of Disney's AVOD. You have 3 of the top 10 you talked about. If you look at this particular chart real quickly, this is Samba data. So it is from their smart TV panel, and we use this with a lot of clients to help dimensionalize the violent degree to which linear TV viewing has been ring-fenced to about half the households. That means the other half of the households are seeing a very, very small percentage of the linear ads. That creates a huge role for streaming TV. And within that streaming TV, if you look at the blue dots and you're saying, good God, what are they watching? I think they're watching a lot of your channels, and I wondered if you could help us understand, as you look out to 2024, as we're sitting here in the fourth quarter, if you kind of did a preview from the AVOD standpoint, you're sitting on beachfront property, and I was hoping, Jennifer, you could tell us a little bit about how you frame up to clients, ways to buy, your position in the marketplace, and sort of that map of how you go to market with these beachfront properties.
Sure. I think, right now it's a dynamic marketplace, and in dynamic marketplaces, very often buyers will buy more from fewer. When we think about linear and streaming, we think it's all additive. So as our foundation of our own television stations, where even for streaming 24/7 and for their FAST channels, they've curated in 1 year 26,000 hours of content just from those 8 stations that are out there. And in terms of Disney Plus and ESPN Plus and Hulu, we're able to fill in the United States with a client who's able to buy a small SMB ad by zip codes, or they're able to scale the country across all 210 DMAs, and we can continue to shift those budgets responding to whatever their KPIs are, or maintaining a tentpole event like the Oscars, and really filling in those gaps. So when we think about how we're selling to a client, it's really responding and getting a holistic view as having one local sales team who's interacting and engaging on that level.
Excellent, excellent. Emily?
I would just quickly layer on, I think, from a growth opportunity standpoint, and how publishers and our industry can compete with the digital behemoths, the Facebooks, the Googles, et cetera, is focusing on time spent and viewer loyalty and Going back to TV is TV wherever it is viewed. And ultimately what that means, going back to FAST and its adoption, is focusing on the user experience, making sure it is premium, whether if it's from a content recommendation perspective or the actual ad experience in and of itself.
Okay, I want to jump forward into another topic that we talk to clients about. Again, imagine modern video for modern living rooms, a QBR discussion. And I'm going to race ahead here because John did such a good job earlier. I call this the marketing paradox. Trade Desk has gone out and talked about the marketing opportunity. So many brands can be on TV that had never been there before, which is true. But the growth of complexity, how many people have seen the Lumascape? NBC did a great chart 2 years ago. Kelly Abakarian, the NBC Lookbook. What sits behind this one is a great, I think this is an IAB chart, but it really talks about there's so many ways to buy. Vayner has a client in the dating space. And I swear in my text right now, we have teams like confused as to DSP, SSP, direct-to-pub, programmatic guaranteed, and we try to break this all down for them. So I wanted to turn this one to both Emily and Jennifer in terms of the market role that you're playing. And I call this CTV complexity, chaos, or opportunity. And as you meet with clients, how do you frame up this paradox of like anyone can be on television? Like you just talked about SMB, but it's hard, it's getting harder. And I don't think that that's good. Creates opportunity for everybody in the room. But how do you think about the complexity of this situation as you try to encourage clients to bring money to nonlinear while keeping linear at a balance that looks at how viewers really work today?
Sure. And thinking about our 8 stations like as the foundation of that, but in our conversations, we're really trying to simplify and make the ease of execution available. And clients will ask us, they won't want to buy one way, so they may interact with us direct IO or programmatically, either PG or in a biddable environment. And also our self-serve ad platform, Disney Campaign Manager. And right now that's full of Hulu inventory with Disney Plus soon to come. But as an example, we grew probably by 800 agencies this past year, 200 of them being local, and grew our number of local advertisers by 50% through that platform. So it's not a one or nothing, it's really all of it and responding to what their budgets are, what their needs are, and where in the country they want to be.
Emily?
I'm going to give a very ad server centric response, which I love that Disney is sitting next to me that has proprietary technology. I think your answer made total sense and is spot on in that, and again, taken in context, the advertisers are clients' clients. My recommendation is in conversations with the buy side is let's focus on supply path optimization. If a buyer is doing a spend, how do they get as close to the actual supply and where that ad decision is being made in real time when we're getting into linear? I think or linear streaming rather, but I don't think the industry is talking enough about that. I think there's a ton of power in owning your own proprietary technology that does that decision or working with a platform that is open and interoperable and essentially takes your direct sold sponsorships next to your traditional IO, next to your programmatic guarantee, your PMP, and any of your obligations if it relates to carriage agreements and how that plays out on digital. That's how you solve for an advertiser's need for frequency capping at scale or competitive separation. So complexity has always been there. This is just a new added flavor of it and focus, just given the adoption and growth that we're seeing.
Emily, do you have to bring beeswax into your discussions as an in-house DSP, or is that a whole other meeting?
It's a whole new world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Alan, from your perspective, we talk a lot about within the agency, we may have more ad tech supply than we have demand, and how do we sort of sift through that and not stretch ourselves too thin? But do you think, if you think about the Lumascape and some of the charts we talked about, do you think there's too much ad tech supply for the demand right now? Are they out in front of where the e-marketer lines are crossing?
Yeah, I mean, too much is an understatement. There's just like a massive amount of sort of unnecessary. So there's a couple of trends that we're seeing sort of bucking against it. So one of the biggest ones is a return to contextual buying. In other words, that you have companies like Irish TV that have gone through and created content text just to click up a screen. The biggest problem with TV when it went digital was that the metadata was almost non-existent, and that it was often somebody would, an episode of Seinfeld might be like comedy show in all caps, and then, funny show in lowercase, and the computers couldn't match that up, that it was the same thing. So there was no way to know what was being done. So that's sort of being remedied at some point. And a lot of advertisers are saying, we're seeing all this data from TruthSet and other companies that so many of the data sets that people are transacting off of are wrong, basically, for lack of a better word. They're incomplete. And it's just easier to buy off of a certain context with certain type. And you can do both. You can do geo-targeting. You can look for sports fans who are in a certain demo or whatnot. But that you can sort of do both, and it makes it a lot easier. The sort of joke that we always use is you go to Facebook and you say, I want left-handed jugglers. Well, Facebook has 100,000 of them. You go to one of the streaming services and they're like, yeah, neither of them are watching this week. And that's really usually people laugh at that. But the point being that it's so diverse in that. The second thing that we're seeing is on the other side of this is self-serve. So you're starting to see Amazon had launched to really get that SMB audience that's used to buying digital and sort of wants to do it themselves. And that's going to make things a lot easier at some level too.
A little inside baseball into this, and this is one of the slides, Alan, you called out when we were doing our prep work. About a year ago, I was meeting with Gary Vaynerchuk and just going through kind of my operating plan, and kind of stopped me and said, could you just explain this shit? I don't just in light of his own house, wait, what am I supposed to have in this room, in that room, your thing, her thing? And I uncovered this slide from the MRC. And so we'll show this to clients, and I wondered, if Alan or anybody in the group, do you ever have to, I don't know if you can see this, but have to break it down? CTV is this, OTT is that. Inside OTT, when you go down here, it goes this way and that way. We could go over here. Are we killing ourselves when it's really just, the consumer does not care about this?
But it's a huge problem because too often I'm in meetings or people tell me they've been in meetings as well where people are using the same term and they're talking about two completely different things, and they get a week into their negotiations oh wait, you think that OTT means this? No, we don't think that. And it's with everything. We have a similar chart where it's just okay, TV is, it's free and not free. Yeah. That's basically how it works. So FAST is free, SVOD is not free. They both have ads. One of them has ad free, and they both have linear and on demand, and that's about it. But this chart, which is why I flagged it, the number of definitions, and I'm sure everybody in the room has run into this, that we've seen against what people think is OTT versus CTV and how they define it. I mean, there's thousands of different variations, and you need to get everybody on the same page.
We've almost given up trying to police acronyms, if you will. What are you going to do?
No, you can't do it. I'm just saying, before meetings, you have to be okay, how do you define this? What do you think it is?
It's maddening. But I'm here for all. What is that line? This is the business we've chosen. Okay. Now, this is a quick point of view, too, and a credit to Lumascape, and we'll throw this open to the group. One of the problems with the growth of streaming, where linear still retains a lot of strength, is the fact that as the marginal hour of linear shifts to nonlinear, there is not enough ad load to recoup all the viewing and the impressions and the revenue. And so one of the things that Luma Partners advised was brands are going to have to open up and expand their definition of quote-unquote premium video over the rest of this decade. Because as you can see here, they're claiming that recategorized TV is going to be, in cinema, something else. Shameless plug for VaynerMedia. Our solution for this is something that we call TV 3.0, and I'm very fortunate to be in a situation where, to Rashad's point earlier, TikTok is more important than linear at VaynerMedia. So our job is to work on the right side of this pyramid and flip the script for the industry and work up from real consumption and real attention where consumers are in feed all day long watching short form vertical video, and we want to put the best TikToks on Disney+. we'd like to run our TikToks re-rendered through Freewheel. And so we bridge up from social into streaming and maybe re-bridge into linear. So it's about interoperability and optionality, end of VaynerMedia ad. But the question, to bring it to a point here, is when we take linear TV impressions and we move them into a digital IP environment, so they're no longer analog, do we bring all the digital marketing characteristics with it? Like in the meetings that you're in, do you really find that you have emboldened the TV buyer and the digital buyer to kumbaya and come together? Because as TV becomes more digital marketing characteristics drift to TV. Or to the point of the political meeting earlier, maybe it's just about, just give me some impressions and I need the GRPs. Do we really have a nirvana of digital marketing techniques on the television today? I will throw that out to anyone.
I mean, I can, yeah. So there's three things going on here, okay? So first off, one of the big reasons that you don't see as much of the inventory thing is, so if you're a big brand, if you're the biggest brands who advertise on TV, who spend 9 figures like Pepsi and Ford and whatnot, they look at the inventory that's on streaming right now, and it's mostly reruns, right? It's not original content. And they're like, well, we want our ads to run. We spent $30 million on this freaking Pepsi commercial. We don't want it running against a rerun of Matlock on Pluto. We want it running on a first-run series. Now, that will change in anywhere from 2 years to 5 years. There will be ample inventory on Disney Plus, on Netflix, on all that against first-run series. And that is the point where they're going to go, oh, I get it. Like, the SVOD is the new prime time, FAST is the new cable, take all our money, go. And there will be ample inventory there. So that's A. B is YouTube, and this has been a huge battle. If you go back to your gauge slide, which sort of gets glossed over, what's number one on that chart? It's not Netflix, it's YouTube. And I have asked the guys at Nielsen, and they're like, yes, that is YouTube that's being watched on a television set. That's not YouTube overall. And everybody thought initially, because Nielsen, they had been including YouTube TV, the vMVPD, in there. And everybody was convinced that once they took it out, YouTube would drop down, but it didn't. And so Google has been pushing really hard, going, no, we're TV. Like, people are watching it on a TV set. It's commercials, you need to call it TV. And the VAB, among others, has been pushing back really hard and going, no, it's not. It's not premium, it's a lot of UGC. Our take is the reality is it's very gray, because there are TV shows, there are actual TV shows on YouTube, and then there's a lot of makeup tutorials, and they're not the same thing.
But did you know 40% of YouTube impressions were running on the biggest screen in the home as television?
Yeah.
It's great. It's complete. They've been trying to get TV money for 10 years, and now they have half of their inventory running on television, and not just YouTube TV, just the regular YouTube. So I find that part fascinating, the notion that the analytics, the content, a lot of the characteristics in a digital agency, and it's part of my job, we can bring that to TV with the help of a Freewheel, with the help of Disney, with the help of industry expert like Alan. So like I said, we could do this. We could have 4 of these conferences, right here at the Conrad. But this was a great opportunity. And again, thanks to Tim and the team for inviting me. And I appreciate the panel for joining in. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome.